Families Canada and the Centre of Excellence for Early Childhood Development are delighted to launch this free webinar series. I am Zindu Saleh. I'm the Director of Operations at Families Canada. The webinar will highlight some possible effects of the current pandemic on young children's behaviors and emotions, and it is based on the chapters of the online encyclopedia on early childhood development. We hope that these discussions will support children and families and service providers like yourself and provide evidence-based information on early childhood development on topics that is relevant and responsive to the current COVID-19 climate. The series is facilitated by Isabelle Vinet. She is an expert in the prevention of disruptive behaviors during early childhood and also the executive director of the CEECD. Today's topic is self-regulation. Over to you, Isabelle.
Well, thank you, Zindu, and thank you all for being there in such great numbers. I guess we didn't expect that, and I guess we all share the same need to see how we can support parents in this extraordinary, exceptional context. So clearly, there is no way we know now the impact of all of this on children. We will need studies for that, obviously. But there is knowledge, and I guess that the state of knowledge on early childhood development can shed some light right now. So, self-regulation. Obviously, self-regulation is so important because we know now, and we know more and more how it is underpinning many, maybe, well, we say all learnings, but basically, learnings about how to make friends, how to be accepted in a group of peers, and also to be able to learn how to read. But learning how to read, basically, you need some of those very, very basic skills, like learn to be sitting quietly, be able to follow directions, and be able to wait for your turn. We know that parents, they sometimes put, without wanting to do that, they put some pressure on us, asking, do you prepare my child to be ready to enter school? So what it is really the ability to control or to regulate our attention, our behaviors, and our reactions. So what we know is that self-regulation is affected by brain development, by parental practices, language, and, oh my God, stressful events. So I guess right now it's not surprising, those behaviors we see and observe. And one researcher, Sonia Lupien, in French it works, it's the 4 letters for the acronym for CINE. So the C stands for, you experience stress when you are in the situation where you don't feel you have control over things. The I stands for unpredictability. In French, it's imprévisibilité. Guess what? We're in that situation, I guess. And stands for new things happening, facing new situations. And we can relate to that as adults. But imagine our children, they don't feel they have that much control. Probably they don't feel they can predict things that much. And the E stands for ego. So when your ego is threatened, so guess what, today I experienced all of that plus the ego part because I'm stressed in my presentation, making sure that I don't say things that doesn't make sense. So basically, 2 big components of self-regulation, the behavior side with self-control, and the more cognitive aspect of self-regulation with the executive function. Self-control, it develops over time. We know by the age 4, we know that children more and more are able to control their impulses, but it's normal, for 4-year-olds and 5 and 6 and 10-year-olds not to be able to control their behavior and impulses all the time. As adults, we experience the challenges of being always in control. So again, it's important for parents to adjust their expectations. The other side of self-regulation is executive functions, and it's more about the cognitive aspect, as I was saying, but just very importantly, before we go to the executive functions, that arrow is important. We know, the state of knowledge tells us that, those components really influence one another. So let's look about what we talk about executive functions. So those are skills that are around three big dimensions. So working memory, inhibition, cognitive inhibition, and cognitive flexibility. Working memory, very briefly, is that memory that helps us to keep in mind the information to be able to undertake a task. So sometimes children, we say they are immature, or they're testing us because, we told them what to do and they're not doing it. So sometimes we may look around, is there something about his ability to retain the information I just asked? So very, very, in a short period of time, the working memory is what you need to get something done immediately. Inhibition is that skill, and it refers a lot to inhibition of the behavior, but inhibition of our thoughts is really inhibition of the first response that comes to us in a situation. So the more impulsive reaction that we have, the Simon Says game really is about practicing inhibition with children. Cognitive flexibility is our ability to adjust when the rules change. Oh, guess what? There are a lot of rules that are changing right now. And we expect that, children will adapt to that. But it takes time. Executive function, it takes at least 4 years to develop. And it's amazing. Studies show that children 3 years and 10 months don't have, as much executive functions. But then by age 4, oh, wow. It seems that most of them have efficient executive functions. What can be done? So a few slides on what can be done, what studies say and show. Guess what? Storytelling. And as you can see on that picture, storytelling is something that may be very, very fun. So how storytelling, really stimulates self-regulation? Well, I guess you need to try to anticipate what's going to be happening. And so when that educator, when you put so much energy and they're all excited, they're all so in the story that if you, as a strategy, would stop the story and say, oh, what's going to happen next? They're so involved in this that they need to think ahead. So, and thinking ahead is about planning. It's the same kind of strategy. So storytelling, pretend play. When you play like those children, you need to set some rules among our friends. And, we see that that child with the paper, he leads, but then he's saying, to his friend, you're going to be doing the chef, you're going to be doing this and that. And so, they need to they need to have good memory, working memory, to remember what is their role. Music, and there are a lot of studies comparing music and exercise and yoga, and it's not that clear yet. We're not that sure what works better, but it all seems to be in the good direction. Exercise, one of the researchers was saying to me one day, Isabelle, it seems to be that, if you want to support for self-regulation, have children, be outdoor play will be something we'll be addressing a little bit later. Climbing, it really seems to be supporting self-regulation. Yoga, tons of studies on yoga and mindfulness about managing stress, also managing anxiety, and it seems to be also stimulating self-regulation. What can be done? Just a few slides, and again, we're going to be sharing that. Invite parents to go back to the basics. In this specific context, it's not about having sophisticated material. Back to the basics. And I was talking about outdoor play. We are in a study right now supporting some families, and we were surprised these days to hear that some parents don't let their children go outside at all because they are afraid. And so, it's important to say, if you respect, the public health rules, and you do distanciation and every that, it's good for your child and for you to go take a walk, right? So back to the basics. So behind self-regulation, there is something about being reassured. So with parents, saying when you're, that time you take every night, and being the warmth and responsiveness that you do, it seems to be so obvious and simple, but it is extremely important. So continue what you've been doing. Simple things matter the most. So make up small routines, preparing or folding clothing and doing things together as a family, and make it fun. Playing is about having fun during a routine. So again, put upfront the value of those small things. The use of pictograms is important. Or are they 2, 3, 4, or 14? Sometimes they seem to forget some routines and what our expectations are, and what being calm is all about. We all have definitions that are different about what is the state of being calm. So as a parent, we can encourage them to go through some magazines and show pictures to their children about what calm is, what it is for them. Of course, let the interest of the child lead some choices, have fun, be a model in terms of showing that sometimes we need some space, we need some room, and it's okay for us to say, you know what, I need a minute, I'm going to go in my room, or I'm going to do outside, I need to breathe, I need to do something that's going to be help me feeling better. So do that and show children that you're doing that, so they learn about what we are doing. Use discipline as a learning experience. So again, yes, you have to set limits, you have to say no, but then when you say no, what can be something that can be taught? I see you're angry, I see it in your face, let's breathe, let's do something, stop right now. So teach. Discipline is a lot about teaching. Help them recognize the emotion of the other. So you just hurt your sister or your brother, look, is he happy? Did you want him to be sad? No. Okay. That this is, and we know, encourage empathy and is good, of course. Reintroduce rough and tumble play. We know, and I don't want to be sexist, but studies show that fathers tend to let their child be and play with them in a rough and tumble play. And sometimes mothers, and I raise my hand, say, oh no, I'm worried I'm gonna be whatever and aggressive. And we know that rough and tumble play is a play where you have rules, you need to respect them, because your dad's gonna say, this game stops now, you went too far. You learn self-control through rumble. This is documented. A few rules, limit the rules, and just remind parents, you don't need 15 rooms, 2 or 3, but explain them, teach them, illustrate them. Ignore disruptive behavior as much as you can, but then again, it only works to lower, the frequency of disruptive behavior. Intentional ignorance work only if right after the behavior stopped, you provide positive attention again. Prepare a list of privilege that can be revoked, if needed, to send a clear message. So of course we need to set limits, and children need to know that, when I'm on the phone or facilitating a conference, you don't come, asking for things and whatever, or shouting in my ear and, or bite me. So of course, what can be privileges that you list with children, and you can revoke them. So thank you for being so patient, and Zindu, back to you.
Thank you so much, Isabelle. A lot of good, useful information there, I know for myself for sure, and not just for those working with children and looking after them, but for, I think, everybody, going back to basics and self-regulation.
Hi, I'm calling in from Windsor, Ontario. I'm in a kindergarten classroom. And I was the one who raised the difference of self-regulation and self-control, just because I heard some of the language around control and around inhibition and privilege revoking. And I think that they've really lost quite a bit right now. So there's going to be children who are showing us the trauma that they're going through in many different ways. And in order to address that, I wonder if you could talk a little bit more about emotional literacy.
Self-control is a lot about understanding the emotion arousal and of course, emotional literacy or emotional competence is the topic of our next
I'm ahead of you.
webinar. No, but I was preparing this morning also, and of course, providing specific cues to parents about labeling the emotion they see, and and you were talking about what we see in the face, and their screaming is about emotion, and making it normal to express emotions, and also providing some strategies to regulate emotions. It's all part of, like you were saying, emotional literacy, and it's clearly linked to self-control, right? So thank you, Jocelyn, for your comment, and I guess we will be also providing some specific cues that may support you in sending those messages to parents, because it's all linked, right? Self-control and emotions.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much, Jocelyn.
I just was wondering more about keeping motivation going. I guess I'm talking more specifically at home right now with my 12-year-old and those ages. It's a real just slump right now. And I'm wondering how many children out there are feeling that way. Like, why should I? Like, my daughter just gives me the why should I? Is this a common thing, like the children just feeling like in a slump right now?
I guess, and again, we will know more about this specific context, but of course, what you're expressing is probably signs of sadness, right? And we feel it, we experience it as adults. Many of what we are used to, and those little sources of pleasure and fun, they're all out. And I guess for children, even though they find school challenging and sometimes they don't want to go, there's something there that we hear that children, they miss having that routine, and routine is about feeling good, right? So with those signs of sadness, just to be there and labeling what you see. I see you seem bored, so it helps them to understand, and also to sending the message. It's not that it's normal, right? It's normal what you're experiencing. They feel like, is it gonna end? And the anxiety really seems to be very high right now. So being, set limits, and you were saying, yes, there are privileges to be revoked, but again, clear limits, but also a space where we can express how we feel.
Isabella, what are your thoughts on that? What's the difference between self-control and self-regulation?
Self-control is one component of self-regulation, right? It's one aspect of it. So it's part of that big umbrella called self-regulation. And it seems like, yes, self-control is about being able to calm down, tolerate frustration, being able to wait, and it's really about inhibition of the behavior. But then the other side of self-regulation is inhibition of our thoughts, or our first idea that we need to think a little bit more of. So it's part of self-control is part of self-regulation.
I just had a question. When I love the fact that you mentioned the rough and tumble play, because my group is like crazy sometimes. So like whenever we would do like those really a little bit more risk, they really did love it. And I just wanted to know where the line, like, because licensing sometimes hates it and sometimes the parents hate it. So I want to know where you would draw the line at that.
Oh, if I knew the exact answer to that. Whenever we address that with teachers and early child educators, it's always, the measuring the risk of having children be injured. And also are we sending, the anxiety around, are we sending a wrong message, letting children, get very excited? But I guess what I've found in the literature, but also in the practice, that rough and tumble play, there's absolutely a need for it to be there. But of course, it needs to be under surveillance and guided, and the rules have to be very clear. We have a clip, and maybe we could share that, of researchers working with big monkeys, those big gorillas.
Yes.
And monkeys, what they do, when they want to play fight, not engage in a real fight, but engage in play fight, they do some kind of a smile to each other. It's funny. You can see that they open their mouth and show their teeth, but saying it's just for fun, right? And so they have, I'm sorry to bring that to what we learn, right, from some kind of animals. And so they have that kind of code where it's going to be just for fun. And when you see there is there's the turn taking, you can go and if you go too far and if you bite me, it's done. So I guess, again, with parent asking us or educator asking us, if you have those rules of this is where the area where you're going to be able to play fight.
Yeah.
But you cannot hit there and that, and you cannot hurt anyone. If there's something going outside that rule, it stops right now, right?
Yeah.
So that's why we're saying they learn from, they went a little bit too far, they tested the limit, and then they learned how to stop before it's too late. So I guess setting up clear rules of what you expect, and I guess it's different from one educators, one parent, one family to another. And sometimes we need to negotiate with our partner within the family but one thing is sure is that rough and tumble play has not shown any negative impact on children, or has not shown that children would be more aggressive. It's the other way around. It seems to be supporting self-regulation, so supporting lower frequency of aggression.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
A lot of people asking about self-control of adults, or self-regulation, I should say, of adults, and the need for that when self-regulating
is the same, right?
And
okay, I'm going to give you an example. Okay, I started for at least the 20th time my Weight Watcher plan this week, and I know how it works. I know the pointing machine and everything, and I know the rules, right? And when I feel good and I'm not stressed, it goes pretty easily, right? But as soon as there's some stress, and it is the same, we stop exercising sometime where we have too much when our head is too big, and we should be the opposite, go out and run or walk. But we tend to stop those things we know are good. So I guess it's exactly the same, but this helps us when we feel we experience that as adults, to understand a little bit more all the challenges children face with self-control. It's not because they have developed those skills that they always use it, and in some context, it's very difficult to be more in control.
Thank you so much, Isabelle. That was super useful, and you're right, what a turnout. We were not anticipating this level of response, so stay safe, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. Take care.